Afternoon, John.
I'm Marty.
Marty Keller here in Sacramento, John Donovan in Oceanside, California. It's been a month since we've had a chance to get together between various travels, and I got a visitation from COVID last week, so I could barely speak. I had it showed up for me as a really awful sore throat and laryngitis, so I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to be a good idea to subject our listeners to me croaking. So,
Right. Yeah.
so I've learned a lot about myself since I saw you last, and I know that you had some thoughts too about what's been going on in life. Maybe you could start out. And as everybody knows, this is a deeply scripted our podcast.
Yeah. The script is okay, hit the go button.
Exactly.
We were just talking about how I've been or how you've been for the last 4 weeks. And I've been well. And then I commented on that the accountability tree works.
I think your exact phrase was, "This shit works."
This shit still works. This shit works, yeah. And then I was going to ask you if I ever talked to you about why I call it a tree.
Well, not in a long time.
Well,
and in fact, I was just thinking, John, we have 3 or 4 new people that have started coming to our Rusty Nail Club meetings, and any discussion of basics would be helpful to them.
Okay.
So the tree, yeah, because if you tell somebody we're using the accountability tree, they look at you like, "What are you talking about?"
I know.
I mean, even if you have it there on, like you have it there on your whiteboard behind you,
yeah,
it's not necessarily clear unless you have that.
Let me bring it up. I'll bring and I use my cursor. Accountability tree. And it was.
Now that's over, for those of you who aren't noticing, it's over on the right-hand side of the board.
There you go. And I wrote how this all started is I was in a class and I said, who wants to do some accountability? And the whole group in a chorus said, not us. It's like, we're accountable. We're sitting in our accountability. And I thought, wow, yeah. And then that's when I put no blame, no judgment, just stating the data. And I got that from a thing in Mankind Project where they do a clearing statement and you just say what you see, hear, feel, or what your part was, just stating the data. Right. They didn't put no blame, no judgment, and it just popped out no blame, no judgment. And then your truth. And that's how this whole thing developed. And I've been adding to it for the last 20 years. And it's come to where it is now. And one day I put in tree, like, because it kind of looks like a tree to me. And I have an affinity for oak trees. Coming from Sacramento Valley, there's plenty of oaks. And I just love the look of an aged, well-seasoned oak tree. It's just amazing to me. So I put a tree up there, and as I'm like, you asked me how I'm doing, and I said, this shit works. What I meant was me being accountable for my behaviors when I slip up or I'm spontaneously do violence on the freeway, or I stop and I go, well, I'm taking this, I'm being accountable for whatever I projected onto the other person, I'll own. And I do that every time I spontaneously respond to somebody out of my old subconscious behaviors. And the reason I call it a tree is I was raised Catholic, and I was exposed to Bible stories. And several of them stood out to me. One was a Garden of Eden, Solomon, David, and a couple others, but those were significant to me as a child. And in the Genesis story, we ate from the tree of knowledge, good and bad, which kicked us out. And the way I heard the story is that God, creator, placed a tree at the entrance, and he called it the tree of life. Well, this process, this capacity to be accountable, the ability to account for my behaviors with no blame or judgment, has brought me back to a life I didn't know existed. So I see it as that tree that I think there was 2 cherubim or some kind of badass angel with swords guarding this tree, like, you can't come here because we'll cut you up. Well, the first time I did an accountability thing, I did not want to admit what I was just about to say. The first one was, hi, my name's John, I'm an alcoholic. And in that moment, something shifted internally. I didn't know about this process. I didn't know how to articulate this process, but I did feel something. And the first thought that came to me, I'm coming back to this meeting. So that was like a breakthrough. And it started with me just simply admitting whatever truth I was in at the time. Now, did I like the truth? No. Did I want to be there? No. Did I want to even admit? Because in my mind, it was admitting I was weak. In the statement, hi, my name's John, I'm an alcoholic, is not weak. It's actually a statement of power. So this, and I don't know, it was 15 years later when I'm working with violent offenders and addicts, and this process starts developing, that story came to mind. So tree, because for me, it's the tree of life. Now, my life I didn't know was possible, is available to me through this process of simply stating the truth of where I find myself. Before I discovered the power of honesty, saying the truth, just saying where I'm at, the key here is no blame, no judgment. Just that put me in a feeling state, which was foreign to me because of my family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma. I lost the connection to my feeling body, lost the mental cognitive connection. I was never separated, and any feeling I had was a trigger to either drink or lash out or go away or cause separation. And it was baffling. So I call it the tree of life because it's given me back a life I never knew possible. It's pointed me in a direction that I didn't even know how to ask for. I didn't know how to put it together. It's like, what do you want? Oh, well, my first answer to that question early in my recovery was a moment of peace where this shut down. Just I stopped the critical mind. And this all came together from that. I've been blessed with stumbling onto this process, and also blessed to be put in a situation where the need to use it over and over and over was there, because I had 6 classes a week in the jails. And I got to say it over and over and over and over. And there's a saying, if you want to learn something, teach it. Before I started teaching this, I thought I knew a lot. But then as soon as I started teaching this, I go, oh my God, that's me. That's me. I'm not doing this. I'm doing that. I'm like hiding something that I think people will demean and diminish me. And in the normal, I don't know, normal, in the culture that we've created, and I'm talking man culture, where I found myself as an industrial mechanic, the meal of the day was ridicule and humiliation. So if I said anything, admitted to anything, I was weak, and it's got to be pretty graphic and vulgar. But I was weak. I was a sissy. Let me say sissy. There's other words that we use on each other to demean and diminish because of an emotional attachment either to myself or to somebody else, or an expression of softness or kindness, or that other men, and I'm including myself in this because I use ridicule, humiliation on myself and other men, and women and children, actually, when I get really honest about it. So me just simply being able to say something and admit a character flaw got humiliated, ridiculed, what do you call it, was opening myself up to other people's sarcasm, and anyway, I kind of
Yeah, thank God you were able to start that process before Twitter.
Okay, fill me in.
Well, Twitter, if you had said something on Twitter about this, you would have subjected yourself to an automatic avalanche of ridicule and resentment and projection, because Twitter essentially is it's a pipeline to the collective id, and people don't censor ourselves when we do this stuff. We just react negatively. It's a horrible instrument, yet it's very revealing.
Yeah, I actually don't have Twitter.
Yeah, I don't either, partly for that reason.
Yeah.
I'd like to, if you're open, I'd like to give you some feedback on the tree observation. So first of all, thank you for that share. I've actually never heard you express that the tree has a living, organic, symbolic importance to you.
Yeah.
So I always came at it from its schematic perspective.
Yeah.
So I want to throw up this one that somebody created for us recently. It almost looks like it almost looks like an oak tree.
Yeah.
And by the way, I live like literally a half a mile from a beautiful old oak grove park. So I spend time with the oaks every day.
Oh, good. Wow.
So I came to understand this as the schematic of the process. So in the heart of this drawing, and this is as good as any, is the truth. And this is what, for me, the accountability process is an endless quest for the truth. And so there's a vertical process that occurs when I get to the truth. It produces an emotion, and I'm invited to stay with the emotion that acknowledgement of the truth generates.
Yes.
And then descending the trunk there, I now can ask myself the question, now that I'm in this feeling state, which is generated by the truth, and it might be a very uncomfortable feeling, like you were saying earlier. It can be shame, it can be fear, it can be grief. I can now ask myself, what do I want?
Yes.
Do I want to continue with this feeling? Do I want something else? There's no wrong answer, but the point is I now have the power, as it says there, the power to ask the question of what do I want?
Yes.
And that when I get the answer to that, then I create an intention, and the intention has the power essentially of driving that choice into the roots of my subconscious.
Wow.
So what I saw is the no blame, no judgment to the left and the right up there at the very top is what shades me from the glare of the sun, or the glare of truth, or the glare of something scary, whatever. So no blame, no judgment creates the environment which permits this activity to occur.
Yes.
And so I always saw the no blame and no judgment as the canopy of protection for me to do this hard work, or work
Yeah.
that seems hard when I first essay to do it.
Right.
So for me, when I first encountered this, and we used to write that up in the board similar to the one that you showed there, I was taken by this as a schematic, or as an outline.
Yeah.
No blame, no judgment, truth, what do I want, and so forth. But when you were talking about it as a metaphor, also,
Yep.
what I was thinking about is the tree in its organic nature has it's this, I forget, I may have seen this from some poet or somebody in the many things I've read and researched in my life. The tree has roots deep in the ground and branches high up in the sky. And so the tree is a metaphor for the unity of the ground and the sky.
Yep.
And so for me, that goes to your observation about the tree of life symbol. The gateway to paradise is the willingness to experience my truth as a human being, where I sometimes crawl on the ground, or I sometimes get stuck in the mud, digging in the dirt, as your group is called. And at the same time, simultaneously, I have the capacity to reach for the stars. And so for me, that's the tree metaphor. It's this this organic gift to the planet. Now let's forget the fact that it also takes CO2 and turns it into oxygen, so that helps the human being who needs oxygen. And we have this reciprocal relationship with plants where we convert our oxygen to CO2, and they take our CO2 and convert it to oxygen, and we share the interchange as life sustaining for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I could probably wax eloquent about the tree metaphor because
Well,
it's a very elementary metaphor.
yeah. Yeah. And the leaves are exposed to the light,
Right.
and the roots are in darkness. It's like, and we could, when you were talking about it, I saw the canopy as spirit,
Okay.
and then connection to the ground, which is spirit human unity, and that we don't do this alone. It's like, and there's forces that are holding us, because we have evolved to a point where this introspection, long, hard fought for capacity just to say I am, and have that mean self-awareness, and then choose, make a choice. I have, in my process of using the accountability tree, I have, I want to say, outed almost every character defect that I can possibly name has been done. And there's some still that I don't have names for. And when I find myself in a violent, arrogant, or entitled act, I can go, oh, there it is again. This is something that's hidden from me because it's manifesting and I don't want it. And I can just own, I'm an unsafe driver. Okay. Or I am arrogant, or I think the road is mine. Whatever I'm projecting onto the other person, I own it. I feel this, I feel the truth of it. And then it is my intent. My intent about driving is to be a defensive driver, it's like it never dawned on me that it was to my advantage and to the advantage of the people around me if I'm a defensive driver. So before that, before my recovery, I thought, you need to be a defensive driver because I'm an aggressive driver. And I took pride in that. And it was like, anyway.
Well, I'd like to,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, I'd like to dig deeper into the process here, because this is something I discovered since you and I got together last. And it's implied just even in the defensive driver choice. And that is this, that I discovered that I still have a deeply hidden, what's the word I want here? A set of commandments about what's right and what's wrong, and about the way I'm supposed to be. And I come across this shows up as a voice. It still shows up as a critical voice when I'm confronted with doing things differently from an old habit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll give you an example. So I'm in the recovery phase from my COVID. I test negative. I don't have the virus anymore, but I'm really tired. And I find myself feeling like napping a lot. And I have this voice that goes, "What's wrong with you? There's something wrong with the desire to nap." And it's like, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
There's that voice. So what that judgmentalism is resting in or upon is something I intend to discover.
Yep.
Because what I have taken away from doing this work with you is there is no right answer to the question, what do I want? There's no. So for example, so I'd like to be radical and get your thoughts on this. If I'm driving and I find myself being an arrogant driver and I go, "Oh, I just noticed I'm being arrogant and the other people should get out of the way." And I ask myself, okay, well, what do I want? I can still choose to be an arrogant driver.
Yes.
I can still choose to go, I want these people to pay obeisance to me. Because one of the things that you taught me is that it's not about getting what I want. It's about telling the truth about what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's no right answer, in the sense that there's an absolute, like I have buried in me somewhere an absolute agenda or formula for what's permitted and what's not.
Correct. Wow.
And so what I don't struggle with that. I give myself permission to have that absolute agenda, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I'm learning in this work is that there really is nothing wrong. That whatever shows up in me, this kind of goes to what I heard you talk about with respect to looking at what you called character defects.
Right.
And you say, I've uncovered almost all of them. I'll bet you haven't.
Right.
I love you dearly, and I'll bet you haven't.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So we have, so what if I have an endless series of character defects going down into the very core of my soul? Cool. Because there's nothing wrong with a character defect, unless I have that judgment that goes, there's something wrong with you. And the value of that, this is for the newcomer here, the value of this awareness is it gives us the choice. That's that bottom part of the trunk of the tree, is to be in choice. Because when I'm choosing, I'm taking responsibility for my choices. Yep. And I'm living in the risk of making a choice that will not necessarily rebound to my credit. Correct. It will not necessarily pay off in something wonderful. It might pay off. So for example, a decision to go into a crowded When I went into my nephew's wedding in Chicago, I chose not to wear a mask. Well, I came home with COVID. Whether I got that there or not, the point is I made a conscious choice.
Yep.
And I knew the risks. And so when I came down with it, I didn't feel the need to blame anybody or say, you know, you were stupid. Why didn't you blah, blah, blah. No, it's like I told you last week. I gave myself permission to have COVID, and you know, I'll live with the consequences of my choices.
Right.
And I intend to heal quickly. So that I just wanted to get your thoughts about that. I don't know if you have that experience of that hidden belief structure that says thou shalt or thou
Right.
shalt not.
It is, I'm gonna, it is, yeah, it's persistent, pervasive. And when I make a conscious choice, I learn something.
Exactly.
I'm in a receiving mode. And like you said, I'm taking responsibility. So it's not anybody else's fault, or I don't blame them, or do I have justification to now get them back? And I'm free. Now, I enjoy the consequences of all of my choices. When I don't like the consequences of my choices, then I can choose. And this is key to what the whole race consciousness is. I think it was Jordan Peterson said, and he was talking specifically about men, and it's not necessarily only for men, but he said men need to know that they're monsters. And he got a lot of flack for that. And nobody listened to the rest of what he was saying. They just said, oh, he said everybody got to be a monster.
They probably jumped on Twitter to
They
denounce
jumped
him.
on Twitter and go, Jordan Peterson. And what he meant was, we have the capacity. And if we don't know that, we're dangerous. Because once I know, and I know I'm capable of heinous things. Once I know that, then my choice to do something different is meaningful. It's not, I've got to, oh, I'm a noble person. No, I'm selfish. I'm doing this because I enjoy the consequences of my actions. And there's so much in what we're talking about. People come to me as a drug and alcohol counselor, and they expect me to tell them how to be better. Well, somebody telling you how to be better got you to come into me. It's like, that's the problem. Okay, if I'm going to offer you information, and what I'm looking for and what I look for in myself is simply different. If it's different, then my rational brain has an advantage because it works deductively. So I can say, I was here, I did this behavior, now I'm here. Now my conscious mind is engaged. That's where the choice is, in our conscious mind. A lot of people, especially working with men in the jails and women, I would say, would you be willing to consider that you've been reactionary and really never made a choice? And they go, oh, no, no, no. I knew what I was doing was wrong and I did it anyway. Well, I would like you to consider that's a reaction from unresolved childhood trauma that you don't even know is there. So how would you know that it influenced your choice or your behavior and it was reactionary? And when I got to creating this and I put choice in there, it was significant in that once I told the truth, and I'll use the example of, hi, my name's John, I'm an alcoholic. I was then at choice. And the choice for me was either come back or not. It's that simple. And my choice was consciously, I'm coming back because I noticed something that's different. I thought I was making choices most of my life in all of my behaviors, and they were reactions, they were rote, they were things I did over and over and over and over again. And me being accountable, owning my character defects, and the awareness that I am, that I do have character defects, owning them, now made the choice a conscious choice. So yeah, we're looking for better. Now we're looking for different, not better. And we can build on the difference according to what we say we want. And you know, I mean, we were told, I was told that a human being, flesh is weak, we're decrepit, we need a savior, we're like the low thing on the totem pole. When my truth now is, oh my God, I mean, just in the way I function as a human, I'm a complicated mechanism. It's like I take a banana and I turn it into John on a daily basis. If I heard this from one of my mentors, said if I said I'm this banana, you'd say I was crazy. And if I said I can turn this banana into a human being, you'd say I was crazy. But then I eat it and it sustains me. It's like, this is an amazing thing that we are. Anyway, the admonition to be better, I think, is one of the most insidious things we can do to each other. Be good, be a good boy, be a good girl. Mm-hmm.
And yet, so I don't disagree with you at all. And yet, from the perspective of the book that I've written about this, that we're engaged in an evolutionary process, and that all of these so-called character defects that we experience both within ourselves and within our culture might just be the necessary trial and error of evolution. That you can't make it different, to use your term, until you experience the friction of trying to deal with the hand that we've been dealt.
Yes.
So that, you know, for thousands of years, most people didn't have much access to the rational faculties. Most people did not think of themselves as individuals. Most of us were part of a tribe, and that was the consciousness, like, what do I need to do to make sure the tribe, the group I belong to, can produce enough food to get us through the day? And what do I need to do to defend us against the marauders coming over the mountains and all that stuff? So this notion of even an individual being able to make individual choices uncoerced by other individuals or by other collectives is a relatively new one in our evolutionary history. It's basically only 500 years old as a mass phenomenon. So here we are trying, the struggles that we're going through are like a version of a snake getting rid of an old skin and trying to grow into a new one. I mean, all of this work that we're doing, it's you know, John, when I first started working with you, and one of the things that most drew me to the work, which is also what drew me to the Unity church that I belong to, because the Unity founder said something similar. The Unity founder said, I don't have this as truth. The Unity founder said, I reserve the right to change my mind based on new information.
Wow, exactly.
And what I heard from you is there's no right or wrong in the grander scheme of things. There's just awareness or lack of awareness. And so when I began to reorient my own default position as a person to that stance, there's nothing wrong, that that I'm part of this incredible 13.5 billion year old struggle of the universe to create self-awareness, and that you and I and the other 7 billion of us on this globe are this exquisitely designed species that has still utterly not come into awareness of what our potential is or what our capacity is. We're still struggling through this incredible trial and error, and includes a lot of destruction, a lot of murder, a lot of war, a lot of poverty, a lot of pain, and yet there's glory in the potential, and that we can see that. That's excuse me. What I love about accountability is that I have been able to go through this process as a representative of humanity that permits me, permits you, and permits all of the brothers and sisters who involve in this and similar kinds of work. Not necessarily, accountability is not the only way,
Right.
but every one of us is making a contribution to the advancement of consciousness, such that at some point we will all get this.
Yeah.
Right now, we almost all don't get this.
Right.
In those earliest formative stages of our lives, from 0 to 18 months, where so much of the habits that we were just talking about get formed in our pre-conscious emotional state of helpless little infants, utterly subject to the emotional and physical environment that our parents bring to us.
Right.
So
right.
if I can keep that awareness, if I can set the intention to keep that awareness in when I do my work, it allows me, it's another way that allows me to stop listening to the self-judging voice, the critical voice, and just say, I'm still going to try this as an experiment. I give myself permission to do it wrong.
Yeah. Give myself, I'm willing to fail,
Exactly.
be wrong, and look like a fool.
Exactly. I remember the first time you said that too. It's like, holy shit, what is this guy selling? But I remember, I can still remember sitting in your living room over there in West Sac when I first time I think I heard you say that, and I intuitively knew that that was absolutely right.
Yeah.
I intuitively got it. I mean, my conscious mind's going, with WTF, no way.
Yeah.
But I knew it was right.
Yep.
And I became eager to practice it. It's like, okay, I'm willing to fail. It felt so freeing.
It's like counterintuitive.
Exactly.
And let me explain where I got that. Working with men, we're not willing to be wrong. We're not willing to fail, and we're not willing to look foolish. And in that process of we are mostly wrong. We fail miserably, and we look really foolish trying to uphold a standard that nobody can uphold. And we're, wow. And I remember saying that first time I said that to a group of people at the jail. It was like a chorus of no. It's like, what are you, crazy? And yet, and the statement is willingness to be wrong, not be wrong.
Yep.
Not fail. I am willing to be wrong. Open up a whole new capacity for relationship that I did not have. And one of my favorite terms now is, I don't know. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's see where this goes. So
I'll even say, and I give myself permission to not know.
Yes. And how in the hell could you?
Yeah.
If you haven't, and this is what happened to me as a child. I was treated as an adult that knew better, and I was supposed to figure it out before I learned it, which is traumatizing. It's traumatic, and I stuffed it in my little boy body. Grew up to be 250 pounds, with a big old beard and hair, and I scared people. I was scary, And I rightly so. I remember at the age of 45, 6 years into my recovery, realizing that I was in this massive body, masculine body with the emotional maturity of a 5-year-old. Holy cow. It's like, oh, watch out for that guy. It's like, anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
let me say this one
yeah,
more
go
thing.
for it.
In the family of origin trauma, in the collective, be a man, be a tough guy, don't cry. I created an image of what a man looked like. And then I tried to live up to that standard, and I held everybody accountable. No, responsible. I don't know, maybe accountable is the right word. To have this standard of perfection. Produce everything, don't complain, just produce, don't complain. And then look good, getting everything right, producing everything everybody needs, and have everybody laud you for being the great noble man you are, when everything's just, nobody wants to talk to me, nobody, it's like I'm isolated, alone, living in a friend's bedroom, wondering how the hell did I get here?
Yeah. So for the newcomer, we started the podcast by talking about the origin of the tree.
Right.
Would you be willing to share a little bit about the origin of the term accountability?
Yes. I went to, in 1998, I was in a relationship, and I was told that it's not working because I was abusive. And I thought, oh, well, okay. So I knew about this group called Man Alive, Men Aligned Nationally Against Living in a Violent Environment. Okay. So I went to the first group I went to. So I was doing the noble thing. I was going to go to this class. And I thought, shoot, I had 9 years recovery by then. I could probably help these guys. and the guy that I went to the first class, this guy named Pete, said, just to start out with, this is a group for violent men. And then he explained emotional, verbal, and physical violence, a communication style. He says, if you're not violent, that's okay. You're just in the wrong group. You're just in the wrong room. You can leave. And I thought, oh my God, I'm violent. So I stayed, and so did every other man in the place. And then he went, okay, you're in this role that you created, and you're trying to protect yourself. The way out is to stop blaming, minimizing your violence, blaming your violence, minimizing your violence, or colluding around your violence, like saying to a buddy of mine, oh, she deserved it, you know. If she hadn't done that, I wouldn't have. And then he wrote accountability on the board. And in that moment, something flushed through me. Just like you said, you knew it was right, but your brain was saying, what the hell is this? Same thing happened to me. Whatever came through me, the thought I had is, this man just showed me the path to my enlightenment. Now that didn't make any sense to me, but that I knew that. So I stayed. And their way out of me being a violent man was simply to account every time I chose emotional, verbal, or physical violence, and to report it every week. And I did. It was a year-long class, 52-week class. I stayed there 83 weeks because I could not stop my emotional or verbal violence. And I wanted to stop. And after about 80 weeks, he knew that I had volunteered at Folsom Prison. So he's the guy that asked me to be a facilitator for this at Sacramento County Jail. So that's when I took the job in 2000 at Sacramento County facilitating this. I was working for him for about a year and a half. And I asked the guys, you know, what are you hearing us say? Because I'm thinking I'm giving them the same information I got that he was giving me. And And one of the guys in the class raised his hand and said, John, you want us all to be a bunch of damn sissies. And I thought, how is he hearing that? And so I actually quit, Marty. I told my boss, I said, these guys need a little bit more. The program, the curriculum was top notch. And they need a place so that they can talk about what they're hearing us say, instead of us just assuming they're hearing us and that our message is the right message. So I quit. And when I did an exit interview, the people running the program at the jail asked me why. And I told them, I said, these men need a place where we simply listen to what they're hearing us say or what they want. And they said, okay, we'll give you a contract. And I was working at that for about a year and a half or so. And I knew they were going to Man Alive doing the accountability thing. So I wrote, I wasn't hearing any accountability. So I wrote, okay, let's talk about accountability. And that's when they all just jumped up and said, hell no, we're sitting in our accountability, which is Sacramento County Jail. And then how do I say this so that they can receive it? And then I explained accountability, the ability to simply account for where you're at. No blame, no judgment. And that started this process of me putting this tree together. And it took several years to develop. And I want to say that it's still developing. And if there's anything new, I'm willing to put it in there. Or if there's anything erroneous, I don't know if that's the right word, erroneous, or I'm willing to change it. And it's growing with this practice. Now it's 2022. We got, 22 years of me doing violence intervention. And I'd say 18 years of developing this process, and then all the other material came out of that. And when I felt it working in my life, just say the truth, I'm mean. Take a breath. I intend to be kind. It's like things started being different for me. I perceived differently. And the difference, a lot of the difference for me was that I noticed how sarcastic I really was. And that sarcastic covers up emotional and verbal violence. And how I'd be demeaning either to myself or somebody else. So the awareness was at first where I'm at, right? Exactly where I'm at. And when you were talking before about the accountability tree and us as race consciousness, what I'm understanding I'm offering people is a beginning to a process of self-reflection, simply put. And this material works for anybody right where they're at. That's their starting point. And everybody's starting point is different. We're all on a continuum. And my starting point was 1998, sitting in that room with this information. That's when I started introspection. I quit the blame, I quit the judgment, I quit the, not like the next day I was never in blame or judgment. It's like, this is a year-long, lifelong process of me being aware of the impact I have on people. Do I make people feel? No. Do I have an impact on people? Yes. And their choice of feeling with my impact are usually in alignment. I don't make people feel, I do have an impact. And it is my intent to impact people in an empowering way instead of a disempowering way. So hopefully that answered your question.
Well, it's important because my experience as a facilitator of this work is that newcomers inevitably hear the word accountability as responsibility.
Yeah. Oh
They
my God.
inevitably hear accountability as something that happens to them rather than something that they initiate.
Right.
And I think that's, it's perfectly understandable because that's the way in our culture that we tend to use that word. Well, I know actually, when I was in the men's group that, you eventually came and facilitated, we used to think accountability was like holding each other accountable. You said you would do this and then you didn't.
Right. Yeah.
And now there are going to be consequences from us on you.
Right.
So I remember when I first heard you use the word accountability, it's like, fuck you, you're not gonna hold me accountable. I'm not
Right.
doing that.
Right.
So that's why it's important, I think, to spend some time helping the newcomer understand what
Well,
you just said.
yeah.
In fact, when we used to do the 10-step meeting, we would actually write the word account and then put a slash
Right.
ability,
Right.
so that we could point out this is the ability to account, just like you said, the ability for me to account for my behaviors. And so it's because that's the path to that truth there in the accountability tree. I like being in debt. This is my breakthrough
Right.
period. It's like, okay, I like being in debt. I like the drama this causes. Boy, that was an unpleasant truth, but I was able to account for what was going on in my head that was leading to me having the IRS dunning me, threatening to garnish my wages and all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I could finally, once I told that truth, then I could create a different outcome.
Yes.
So once I could account for what was going on and then say it out loud, then I actually, without knowing that's where I was going, I created liberation. I
Abundant.
created freedom.
Yes. Let me address. Now, I looked up accountability in the dictionary.
Okay.
And accountability, I want to paraphrase it, but accountability essentially says somebody is blamable. Somebody pays a price. So I had to go, okay, I had to point that out. That's what
Right.
it says in the dictionary. That's not what I mean.
Right.
What I mean is same, like I'm an alcoholic. No blame, no judgment. If I can state that truth, there's an emotional frequency that goes with it that simply offers me information about why I find myself where I find myself. Of course, I'm an alcoholic. I was incested. I was tormented. I was abused. I was told that everything about me was wrong, including my gender, and I wasn't even the right skin tone color. Okay, so of course I'm abusive. Of course I'm an alcoholic, and it's painful. I'm not saying it's right. It's painful, and it causes destruction. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. I'm coming back. I'm coming back to this meeting. I'm doing something about it. I got a choice point. So this is essential to say the accountability and the accountability tree is not what Merriam or Webster say it is. It's the ability to account like a check page, economic red, black account.
Yeah.
Without blame or judgment. And there's this power that happens in this owning your character defect, saying it out loud. I think you used the word freeing. It's relieving. I can feel things slough off of me in that truth. Now, do I want to stay there? Well, I can choose to stay there, but no, I want to feel like I belong. It is my intent to be of service to the higher good. That's what I really want. And now I can choose in the face of whatever my mind tells me puny guy I am, to stand in the courage of my convictions and repeat this over and over and over and over, and get the clarity that you and I are getting around accountability as something that comes from me, not a punishment coming at me.
It's almost like I become a self-accountant.
Yeah. Yeah.
To use that image that you were just talking about, the account book.
That what came to mind was that what's carved on the entrance to the Temple of Delphi, know thyself. It doesn't say know thyself, you goody two shoes. It says know thyself. That's like the whole of you, what you're capable of,
Right.
what's really going on. And it speaks to Jordan Peterson's men need to know their monsters so that they can choose not to. There may be a time where I need to be a monster. That's in there. That if I told the guys at the jail that, because they would say, once I get out, I gotta put my felony, I gotta check the box, I pay again. I get fired from a job because they found out I'm a felon, I pay again. Nobody wants to hire me. I said, okay, let me tell you this. If I see that my grandson and your son are in the same school, this is before I had a grandson, but they're in the same school and they're doing a field trip. And on the chaperone list, your name's on there. What do you think I say? And they go, oh shit, I don't want that guy. No, what I say is, this man is looking to do something different. He's introspective. This man also knows how to handle himself in difficult situations. So my grandson is safe. He gets to be around a man that has the ability to look at himself and want more for himself. Plus, he's around a man that if anybody messes with that little guy, you are going to stop it because you know how. I want you with my grandson because you know what you're capable of. So that was an example of know thyself. So,
Well, as we're coming to the end of our time together, I think
oh my
that,
God.
yeah, time flies when you're having fun. I think that maybe that's a good place to leave it, which is that the whole purpose for me of doing this work is not simply to know myself, but to know myself as the creator of my life.
Yes.
And to know that I have the power. I've been choosing my whole life, just been doing it without awareness of the power to choose.
Right.
And so what you and I both experienced is based on our experience as little boys growing up in a home where our parents did not know how to nurture and love and enjoy us. We developed these various defenses that might have been adequate for a 4-year-old or an 8-year-old or even an adolescent, but by the time we got into our 30s and 40s, they were still doing the job and we didn't need it anymore.
Right.
But we were still subconsciously choosing to keep ourselves safe because the healing had occurred.
Right.
So now, as we go through this work and we find healing, I know myself as the author of this life, and I find great joy in this capacity. It's like, including making mistakes, including, including having recurrence of old habits of mind, including having this internal judge that says, well, you shouldn't do that, or you should still do it this way, and looking at all that stuff and saying, this is the totality of who I get to be on this planet. Yeah. So what do I want to do today with that?
Exactly.
And that gets to the point. Maybe we could wrap up with this, John, is that you said on one of our previous podcasts that you get up in the morning and you say, you basically create an intention for yourself for the day. And for the newcomer, what that means is, my interpretation, and I'm going to give you the last word. My interpretation is, when I set an intention, I am consciously being the author of my life.
Yes.
Including the willingness to accept the consequences of my choice, which may not always be pleasant.
Correct.
But so what? I chose it, and I'm willing to own it. And then the day I draw my last breath, I intend to be proud of the life that I lived.
Yeah. Very good. And it moved me out of reactive mode and being proactive in my life. Not get everything right, not be good, and to participate well in the struggle. I find myself in the struggle of my life. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That's, how do we start the meeting? This is hot shit.
This is, yeah.
This is good shit.
This is good shit.
So before we wrap up, I just want to let those of you who are watching maybe for the first time, if you'd like to participate in this work, there are a number of meetings that are hosted on Zoom. John hosts a meeting on Saturday mornings at 8:30 Pacific time. I host one Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock Pacific time, and there's several others that others of us host. The information on how to access that will be on the end of the podcast. Please feel free to shoot John or me a note, and we'll be happy to send you the list of all the meetings and the Zoom addresses to come in. When you come to a meeting, you can participate or not.
Right.
You will find when you come to our meetings that there are very few rules and there are very few shoulds or shouldn'ts. So you can come and say nothing, or you can come and dive in the deep end. Either way, you're welcome.
Okay, very good.
So John, this is the beginning of our third year of podcasting. And,
Oh, wow.
So it's been quite an adventure, and it ain't over yet.
That ain't over yet. Very good, Marty. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Have a great
Okay.
weekend.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.